There is a rooftop in Ramadi you will never forget, not because of what happened there, because of what didn't. You are lying flat behind a parapet, rifle extended, scope trained on a doorway, 380 meters across a market square. The assault element is 40 seconds out. 12 men. Moving fast, completely exposed. You are the only reason they are not already dead. There is a man in that building, second floor, third window from the left. He has been there for 11 minutes. He has not shown a weapon. He has not moved to a firing position. He is watching the street below with the focused attention of someone who is waiting for something specific. You have been watching him for 6 hours. Your spotter's voice is flat in your earpiece. Third window, still static, you already know. You saw it before he said it. The assault element rounds the corner. The man in the window shifts his weight. This is the moment that separates what you are from every other trigger in that operation. Most people, when they think about a military sniper, think about a shot, a distance, a number. They think about the films, the ghillie suit, the 3-day crawl, the single round, the exfiltration, clean, surgical, cinematic. That is not what this is. What this is and what you actually are is the most patient, most isolated, most psychologically demanding combat role in the history of organized warfare. Not because the shot is hard. The shot is the easy part because everything before it and everything after it happens inside your head, alone. You are not a sniper because you shoot well. Thousands of men shoot well. You are a sniper because you can hold still, physically, mentally, emotionally, in conditions designed to make every human instinct scream at you to move, to act, to do something. You are a sniper because you can watch a man for 72 hours and feel nothing that interferes with your judgment. And you are a sniper because when the moment comes, when the weight of 12 lives collapses into a single second of decisions, you do not hesitate and you do not guess. You already know the man in the window raises something. You were right. What made you the man on that rooftop and not the man through the scope? That process begins long before the rifle. It begins with a sergeant watching you on a range thinking something you don't know he's thinking. And it begins with a question nobody puts on the official checklist. Your unit has been watching you for months, not your groupings on paper, not your qualification scores, not your time on the obstacle course, or your rack of deployments, or the way you perform under direct fire. Though all of that matters, and all of it is noted, something else. The way you go quiet when an operation goes sideways. The way you notice details other men walk past without registering. And the vehicle that was parked on the left side of the road yesterday and is now on the right. The window that was open at 0600 and closed at 0800. The man in the market who has been there 3 days in a row and has never bought anything. You notice. You say nothing. You file it. That is what they are looking for. The team sergeant doesn't write it down in those terms. The official criteria will tell you they are evaluating marksmanship fundamentals, physical endurance, the ability to operate independently in austere conditions for extended periods. All of that is true. All of that is necessary, but none of it is sufficient. There is a quality that no checklist captures and no physical test measures. The sniper community calls it different things in different units. Composure, emotional architecture, the ability to hold complexity without resolving it prematurely. What it means in practice is this: you can sit with uncertainty and not let it move you. In infantry combat, uncertainty is the enemy of survival. You react fast, you decide fast, you move fast. The man who hesitates in a firefight gets his teammates killed. Speed is the asset. In sniper work, speed is the liability. The sniper who reacts fast shoots the wrong man. The sniper who decides fast engages before confirmation. The sniper who moves fast gives away a position it took him 14 hours to build. The selection filter is looking for the man who has already learned, not from training, but from something in his nature, that the hardest discipline is the discipline of waiting when everything in your body is telling you to act. You are not selected because you are the best shot in the unit. You are selected because the best shot in the unit cannot be still. There is one other thing, a quality the selection process identifies but cannot teach, cannot replicate in a course. cannot install in a man who doesn't already carry it. What happens inside a sniper's mind the moment a human being enters the scope? That quality has no name on any evaluation form, but the sergeant watching you on the range already knows if you have it. Day 1 of sniper school, you are handed a rifle you already know how to use and told that everything you think you know about shooting is wrong. Not wrong in the sense of incorrect technique, wrong in the sense of insufficient. What you knew before, the fundamentals, the sight picture, the trigger press, the breath control, that knowledge got you here. It will not get you through. The first enemy they introduce you to is wind, not wind as a concept. Wind as a living, changing, three-dimensional problem that exists differently at your position than it does at 200 meters, at 500 meters, at 800 meters. The wind that moves the grass beside you is not the wind that will move your bullet at the halfway point of its flight. You cannot feel the wind that matters most. You have to read it from a distance, in real time, while everything else is also happening. The second enemy is gravity. You knew about gravity. You did not know how intimately you would need to understand it. How a bullet begins falling the instant it leaves the muzzle, how that fall accelerates across distance in a curve your scope must anticipate before the shot, not after. The third enemy is the Earth itself, the Coriolis effect. The planet rotating beneath your bullet in flight. Past 800 meters, the Earth has moved enough that your point of impact will drift laterally, and you was what's chased are. Not because of wind, not because of shooter error, but because the ground beneath the target has rotated slightly in the time your bullet was in the air. You are not shooting at a fixed point, you are shooting at a point that is moving at roughly 1,000 miles per hour, and you are moving with it, and the correction for that motion has to be calculated and held before the trigger breaks. This is the moment most candidates begin to understand what sniper school actually is. It is not a shooting course, it is a physics course, delivered through a rifle. And here is what closes the question you've been carrying since selection. Why the best shot is almost never chosen. Because the best shot believes he already knows how to shoot. That belief is the first thing the course has to destroy. The man who arrives certain must be made uncertain before he can be rebuilt. That process costs time the course does not have to waste. The man who arrives knowing he has something to learn, he is already ahead. But none of that prepares you for what comes next. There is one phase of this course that ends more careers than ballistics, more than wind reading, more than any academic failure. It has nothing to do with marksmanship. You have been on your stomach for 4 hours, and the ground beneath you is rock and dry grass, and something that has been pressing into your left hip since hour 2 that you have not moved to adjust. You will not move to adjust it. Movement is the enemy. Movement is the only thing that can end your career in the next 60 seconds. The instructor is 300 meters ahead of you. He has binoculars. He has been scanning the terrain between you and him for the last 40 minutes, and he has not found you yet. That is about to change if you breathe wrong. This is the stalking phase. The exercise is simple in description and brutal in execution. You begin at a designated point. You move, crawling, dragging, inching across 300 meters of open terrain toward an instructor who is actively looking for you. You establish a firing position. You fire 2 blank rounds, you remain undetected, simple. Except the instructor knows every piece of cover on this range. He knows where candidates hide, he knows the sight lines, the dead ground, the vegetation patterns. He has been doing this for years, and he is very good at finding people who do not want to be found. And he has a radio. A second instructor is walking the range with him, close enough to check grid coordinates. If the shooter is spotted, like even after the rounds are fired, it counts as a detection. A career over. You have 40 meters left. 40 meters of ground with less cover than what you came through. You mapped it 2 hours ago during your observation phase, and you identified a shallow depression running at an angle that will take you within range. It will also expose your left side to the instructor's current scan arc for approximately 8 seconds. 8 seconds. You slow your breathing to the rate the instructors taught you. Not calm breathing, not combat breathing. Something slower than both. Your heart rate dripes. The urge to rush, to cover the ground fast, to get it over with, rises exactly as they told you it would. You do not move. You wait for his binoculars to shift left. They shift. You move. 3 meters. Stop. 4 meters. Stop. The depression swallows you. Somewhere behind you, a candidate who has been on the range for 5 hours and 50 minutes stands up. 20 meters from the firing line, adjusts his ghillie suit, and is immediately spotted. He has failed on the spot. 5 hours and 50 minutes. 20 meters. The training makes no exceptions because the battlefield makes no exceptions. A sniper who is detected is not penalized. He is not reassigned. He does not get a second attempt. He is killed. You graduated. You're a qualified sniper. You have the school certificate, the tab, the designation. You have survived the physics course and the stalking phase and the fieldcraft evaluations and the sleep deprivation and the academic tests that eliminated candidates who could shoot but could not calculate. And on your first deployment, you will not pull the trigger. Your job for the foreseeable future is to make sure someone else does it right. You are the spotter. And before you decide what that means, understand what the people who do this for a living already know. The spotter is not the assistant. The spotter is not the supporting role. In a two-man sniper team, the spotter is frequently the more experienced operator, carrying the more complex cognitive load, making the decisions the shooter executes. The shooter holds still and presses a trigger. You read the world between the muzzle and the target and tell him where that world is going to be when the bullet arrives. Here is what that means in practice. The wind at your position is irrelevant. You are not shooting from your position. The bullet will travel through wind that exists at 200 meters, at 500 meters, at 800 meters. Wind you cannot feel, wind that may be moving in a different direction than what's moving the grass beside your boot. You read it through the spotting scope. You read the vegetation at distance, the dust patterns, the way heat shimmer bends and leans. That heat shimmer, the mirage rising off hot ground, is not a distraction. It is data. A sniper learns to read mirage the way a sailor reads water. The speed of the shimmer, the angle of the boil, the direction of the lean tells you wind speed and direction at distances where no physical indicator exists. It is a superpower that looks like nothing from the outside. You maintain the dope book. Data on previous engagements. Every shot the team has fired, every condition that existed when they fired it, every correction that was applied and what result it produced. This notebook is not a record. It is a living document of everything two men have learned together about physics, in a specific geography, at a specific altitude, in a specific temperature range. It tells you things no ballistic calculator can tell you, because it is specific to this rifle, this ammunition lot, this team, this place. You build the firing solution from all of it. Distance, elevation hold, wind call, target description, clearance. Then you give it to the shooter. He fires, you watch. You already know before the bullet arrives whether the call was right. You felt it in the wind data. You saw it in the mirage in the half second before he pressed the trigger. There is a decision you make in that final moment, what a wind correction call that happens faster than conscious thought, that the shooter cannot make from behind the rifle. That call is yours. The bullet is already gone. The bullet will leave the muzzle at 2,800 feet per second. By the time it reaches the target, it will have been in the air for over a second. In that second, gravity will have pulled it down. Wind will have pushed it laterally. Air density, thinner at altitude, thicker in heat, will have altered its deceleration rate. The spin imparted by the barrel's rifling will have introduced a slow lateral drift. The earth will have rotated beneath it. You accounted for all of it before you pressed the trigger. This is what people misunderstand about long-range precision shooting. They imagine a man looking through a scope at a target and placing the crosshairs on the target and firing. That is not what happens. The crosshairs are not on the target. The crosshairs are in empty air, at a calculated point in space where physics will allow the bullet to arrive if every variable in the firing solution is correct. You are not aiming at a man. You are aiming at a coordinate in three-dimensional space that does not yet exist. You are predicting where reality will be in 1.3 seconds and sending a piece of copper and lead to that prediction. The elevation hold accounts for gravity's arc across the distance. You do not aim high and hope. You calculate the precise number of milliradians above the target's center mass that the bullet must leave from in order to arrive at center mass. That number changes with distance, with altitude, with temperature, with the weight and velocity of the specific ammunition lot in your chamber today. The wind hold accounts for lateral drift, not the wind at your position, the integrated wind value across the entire flight path. A weighted average of every wind condition the bullets will pass through. Read in real time from mirage and vegetation and the feel of the air that your spotter translates into a number before the shot. The firing solution is an equation. Every variable feeds it. The shooter's job is to execute the solution without disturbing it, to press the trigger in a way that does not introduce any input the equation did not account for. The shot breaks. 1.3 seconds of silence. In that silence, the spotter calls the correction he already calculated in the half second before the trigger broke. Because the wind shifted 0.3 miles per hour in the final moment, and he read it in the mirage, and he made the call, and it is already done. The bullet arrives. The solution was right. You do not celebrate. You are already building the next one. In 72 hours of observation, you have identified 23 potential targets. You have engaged 2. The other 21 were wrong. Wrong timing, wrong confirmation, wrong context. A man carrying something that moved like a weapon and turned out to be a length of irrigation pipe. A vehicle approaching a position that matched every behavioral indicator of a threat and stopped to let a child cross the road. You will never know what those 21 people were going to do. That uncertainty does not go away. You file it and you continue the mission because the alternative, engaging on probability rather than confirmation, is not a line you are willing to cross and not a line the law of armed conflict permits you to cross. The films count the kills. Nobody counts the 21. That number is higher than the engagement number for every professional sniper who has operated under modern rules of engagement. In Iraq and Afghanistan, as the wars progressed and the rules tightened, the sniper became simultaneously the most lethal and the most restrained asset on the battlefield. Because the scope that gave him the ability to reach out and kill at distance also gave him more information than any other sensor in the operation. More information means more responsibility. More responsibility means more weight on the decision not to shoot. Here's what that decision actually looks like. A figure at 600 meters, moving with purpose along a wall, carrying something at his side, shape consistent with a rifle, but the grip is wrong, the carry position is wrong, the way his body is moving is wrong for a man who knows he is about to use a weapon. You have been watching him for 40 minutes. Your spotter has the same read. You do not engage. 30 seconds later, he rounds a corner and hands the object to a child. It was a tool, agricultural. You were right. You will never know if you were right. The confirmation came after the window closed. And confirmation after the window closes is not confirmation. It is relief. And relief is not the same thing as certainty. You were right. You carry the possibility that you were wrong. Both are true simultaneously. That binary and the weight of the call made and the call that cannot be unmade is something the training prepares you to execute and does not prepare you to live with. That cost does not surface in the field. It surfaces years later at a dinner table, in a quiet moment when nothing is happening and everything is fine. And the scope is still running. At known distance ranges, you fire at paper. Paper does not react. You have fired thousands of rounds at paper and steel over the course of your career. You know exactly what a hit looks like. The hole, the splash, the fall of the plate. You know what a miss looks like. You know what the correction is before the spotter calls it. Paper and steel are a closed system, clean, finite. The consequence of a miss is a score. Through a scope at combat range, a human being does not work like that. A human being reacts, and the scope, 10 power, 20 power, the magnification that makes your job possible, shows you everything. The impact, the physical response, the transition from a person who is moving to a person who is not, the stillness that follows. You cannot look away. The scope requires you to observe the result of what you did in order to call the correction if the shot missed, in order to confirm the kill if it did not. The observation is not optional. It is the job, and you cannot unsee it. The psychological literature describes what this produces as moral injury, the damage that occurs when a person is required to act in ways that conflict with deeply held moral beliefs or witness events that do so. The clinical term is accurate and completely insufficient. It does not capture the specific texture of what a sniper carries, which is not guilt. Most snipers do not feel guilt about lawful engagements executed correctly, but something quieter and more permanent. The debt of the scope. What you owe to what you saw. You go home. There is a dinner table, your family is there. Someone is talking about something that happened at school, something ordinary, something that exists entirely outside the world you have been living in for the last 8 months. You are present. You are listening. You are 1,000 meters away. You have taught younger snipers everything the manual covers: ballistics, fieldcraft, hide construction, wind reading. And you have taught them the things no manual covers: how to manage the hours of waiting, how to control the physiological response when the target appears, how to go home. Some of them are fine, some are in therapy, some are gone. You cannot predict which outcome waits for which man. You trained them as well as you knew how. The inability to predict it, to have given everything the job asked of you and still not be able to protect them from what the job costs, that is something you carry too. In 2017, a bullet was in the air for 7 seconds before it killed a man. 7 seconds. In 7 seconds, you can take a breath. You can say a sentence. You can change your mind about almost anything. The man who fired that bullet could not change anything. The moment the trigger broke, the firing solution was the only thing left. The calculation he had made, the wind holds, the elevation, the Coriolis correction, the adjustments for air density at that altitude and that temperature on that day, was already committed. He was watching through the scope at a target 3,540 meters away who had no idea the math was already done. Second 1, the bullet is still supersonic, still on the ascending portion of its arc. Second 2, it has crossed 1 kilometer. The wind he read from the mirage has pushed it laterally. The correction he built into the solution is holding. Second 3, the bullet passes through its maximum ordinate, the highest point of its flight path. Gravity is now the dominant force. It begins to fall toward a point the shooter calculated before he pressed the trigger. Second 4, 2.5 kilometers out. The Coriolis effect has been deflecting it laterally since it left the muzzle. The correction for Earth's rotation, a variable most shooters never need to calculate, is the difference between a hit and a miss at this distance. Second 5, the bullet is subsonic now. The ballistic coefficient, the measure of how efficiently this particular projectile cuts through air, determines whether it still has enough velocity and stability to remain accurate. Second 6, the shooter has not moved. He is watching. He cannot adjust. He cannot correct. He committed to this solution 7 seconds ago, and the laws of physics are the only authority now. Second 7, the bullet arrives. That record stood until a Ukrainian sniper pushed it to 3,800 meters in 2023. Before that, a Canadian JTF-2 operator held it at 3,540 meters. Before that, Craig Harrison at 2,475 meters in Helmand Province. Before that, Carlos Hathcock, who shot an enemy sniper through the man's own scope. The two men aligned on the same axis of light, one of them faster. With equipment that required him to calculate in his head what modern software does in milliseconds. The distances have grown, the physics have not changed. The record will be broken again. The man who breaks it hasn't started training yet. He doesn't know it either. You leave the military the same way you entered it, carrying gear, but the weight distribution has changed. The rifle is gone, the spotting scope is gone. The dope book, years of data, hundreds of conditions recorded, every correction applied, and every result noted that stays with the unit. It belongs to the team, not the man. What you carry out has no entry in the regulation manuals. The transition looks different for every sniper. Some move to law enforcement precision teams where the skills translate, but the context inverts entirely. One shot, one life, no margin, and the debrief happens not in an operations center, but in a courtroom, in front of people who were not there and cannot be made to understand what the moment actually was. Some become instructors at civilian long-range schools, teaching hunters and competitive shooters the same fundamentals. The wind reading, the ballistic calculations, the trigger discipline that will never be used the way you use them. The students are serious and capable, and they will never know what you are not telling them. Some write books, some do not speak of it at all. Here is the paradox you carry out with everything else. The skill that made you exceptional. The ability to locate a target, build a solution, and deliver a round to a specific human being at a distance where he cannot see you, hear you, or conceive of your existence. That skill is extraordinary. It is the product of years of training and deployment and experience that cannot be replicated in any other context. And it is completely useless in the world you are returning to. You were trained to be the most patient observer in any environment, to notice what others walk past, to hold still when everything urges movement. to watch and wait and build a picture from details that individually mean nothing and collectively mean everything. In civilian life, you still do all of that. You cannot stop. It is not a habit. It is a restructuring of how your mind processes the world. You observe everything. You say nothing because there is no spotter. There is no team. There is no mission that gives the observation a purpose. That was the job. That is now the condition. Somewhere tonight in a special forces company or a SEAL platoon or a ranger battalion, a sergeant is watching a young operator on the range. The operator is patient. He is quiet. He notices things other men miss. He doesn't know he's being watched. He has the combination. He doesn't know that either. The cycle doesn't end because someone decides it ends. It ends when there is no one left who has it. There is always someone who has it.